Right, hey everyone, I'm Clue. It's time to start looking at Dusk Till Dawn cards. Now, unfortunately, the card gallery isn't up just yet, but everything has finally been spoiled, so we've seen all the generic cards, and I'm just comfortable using the FaB card base to look at all the different cards, and also just using this list for instance, talking about what is short printed. But the starting point, so I think I'm going to break this into three, right? We'll go over the generics and class type cards, and then shadow, and then light. I think that's the better way to talk about it, because obviously the juiciest part is with the light cards, because once again, light seems to be very heavily favored. Now, Dusk Till Dawn is definitely going to be a love-hate sort of set for me, right? There are wonderful things in the set, and then there are some pretty nots. So by and large, I feel, on the fence about Dusk Till Dawn. It being out of print is good, but at the same time, it being out of print probably means that they have printed a large amount, right, to make sure that they can supply the market. The only reason it is out of print is because of the serialized art card, something that can't be inserted later, and therefore would act as a differential between any new printings. Now, to start off, I am not a competitive player, right? I have a decent understanding of the game and a few understandings of, the current meta and how cards are played and stuff like that, but it's not substantial. So do take anything I do say in terms of playability with a grain of salt. Feel free to correct me. I'd love to expand my knowledge. Again, anytime I'm wrong, it's just a chance for me to grow. So go at it, right? Correct anything I have to say. Second, while I have a substantial collector, I'm not an investor. So when I talk about monetary value, right? Again, take it with a grain of salt. It's just my thoughts and feelings. If anything, I would, at this point in time, start to label myself as a community advocate, right? I like to talk about the aspects of set design and game design, as well as the business and marketing of Legend Story Studios in relation to the growth of the community and what I feel is best for the community. Again, I'm going to say feel because these are my thoughts and opinions. So again, take them with a grain of salt. Now, onto the cards. So we have this section. And again, a big thing for me with Dusk Till Dawn is the top-end cards. They look great. They feel great. And they seem to have a decent amount of playability. But then the low-end cards feel absolutely lackluster. Okay? And the big thing that we're going to go through first is the front line set of armor. Right? Now, Dusk Till Dawn is special. Rather than having a common set of armor, it has three. And they're very niche and not so great. Okay, so the front line armor. At the beginning of your end phase, put a -1 defense counter on this. Okay, so in 2 turns, it is worthless. If you use it to defend, it is destroyed. This has very, very little use to me. Again, if it does have use, if you can point out when it would actually see decent play over, the Welcome to Wraith Iron Rot set, or even the Monarch Iron Hide set, let me know. But for one, it only seems viable in Blitz, because Classic Constructed is too long. 2, if you go first, this set takes a huge hit, right? Because you automatically take -1 without really a chance to block your opponent. So altogether, they seem horrible. Them being rare seems horrible, right? They're taking up, a somewhat decent pool. I'd rather them be in the bulk set of cards and have more options to find some of the actual playable rares. And then we also have the fact that, again, we get 3 versions of this filler armor set, right? We get a shadow variant and we get a light variant. Now, they in themselves, we'll talk about more once we actually get to the section cards, they do seem a little better, but they seem like they would have really supported drafting. And Dusk Till Dawn is not a draftable set. Right, so then, what else do we have? Well, there's probably something really glaring at us, right? Yeah, so the Crown of Providence has been reprinted, and it's probably, a fairly decent choice, given its power level, given its desirability. We now get a non-rainbow foil, non-cold foil variant. We get a stock standard variant, and I would assume if we ever get to the history product that makes up Dusk Till Dawn and the next 2 sets, that we'll see another. Actually, no, not Dusk Till Dawn. What am I saying? We get to the Uprising Dynasty Outsiders block of history pack, we'll probably see a white border variant too. Now, if you look at it, say, objectively, right, so every other legendary in this set has a rainbow foil and a cold foil. This has only the regular version, right? So you can conclude that the short print is roughly, say, 25%, even though it's not listed, right? Because there's not going to be the equivalent amount of copies of this legendary to every other legendary. For every 3 rainbow foils, if we say there's 1 cold foil, right? That's the 25% I'm talking about when it comes to the Crown of Providence. Now, the other big issue that I have with this as a supplemental set, we get Spectral Shield tokens, right? We get the new tokens, which are necessary, but we get all these tokens that we don't need. That again, more pack filler, especially if they are only in the regular printing, right? Brew, the tokens came in foils, made them somewhat desirable. If this is the full list, which I personally hope is not, I hope there is some secrets, especially when it comes to Visette and Prism, right? Because they themselves are also cited as only having regular copies, which I would highly doubt. I would fully expect a rainbow foil variant, but it's weird that they wouldn't outright list it for the token cards. So, these being included, again, seems horrible to me. I don't get the understanding. It's a supplemental set, so we take away the token slot, but we put the token cards in as normal cards, so you now get a token card as a pack filler, right? So it's even less than just a stock standard common card to me. Okay, that aside, they're the big talking points, right? The tokens, again, Eloquence, Courage, and the other new tokens, they're necessary. Another Spectral Shield, Rune Chance, not really, right? Unless, again, there are the foil variants, right? Cold foil versions would have been perfect. But no, extended art, perfect. But no, just comments so far. Not good for me. Okay, so now we can get into the decent cards. Some, at least, right? So we can look. So center. When it hits a hero, name card, they can't play that name card until the end of their next turn. So a great way to shut out a player if you have a decent amount of meta knowledge. So again, it's great in terms of a tech card. There seems to be a substantial amount of tech cards in this for people to use in X matchups, which is great. I think a lot of us are advocating for Blitz to have a extended sideboard, right? So you can actually swap out cards and you can make use of these style of cards. I think this set really sets up for that, right? Having the flexibility to take all of these great cards, but are niche cards, and swap them in and out depending on your matchups. So Censor seems like a great card. A lot of the Majestics, by and large, to me, seem like great cards, seem like playable cards. It's just the rares and commons that really, really feel like pack fillers overall to me, and would have really benefited if the set was draftable. Mischievous Meeps. When this hits a hero, gain control of an item with cost 2 or less they control, otherwise draw a card. Again, great for a matchup, great against Mechanologist, but very niche, something you'd sideboard and tech in depending on your matchup. Hold the line. If the attacking hero has drawn 2 or more cards this turn, prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to your hero this turn. Do I have to say it again? Another decent card, right? Blocks for 2 and then prevents another 3 if the condition is met. A condition which is probably, again, subject to certain matchups. Back to reality, the next attack gains +2, and the next time you hit a hero this turn, destroy a non-token aura they own with cost less than or equal to the damage dealt this way. Now, off the top of my head, there's not that many auras that aren't non-token. The Figments, I believe, are non-token, right? Are they auras though? No, they're not auras, they're instant Figments. So I'm curious what this actually works against. If you know, let me know. For now, again, I'll just say it's outside my knowledge. Warmonger's Diplomacy. Starting with the hero to your left, each hero chooses War or Peace. If they choose War, they may only play attack actions or swing weapons. If they choose Peace, they may only activate non-weapon, non-attack actions. I assume it cycles back to you, right? So starting with the hero on your left, each hero chooses War or Peace, and then it has the next turn tagline, meaning that, again, you do nude yourself. Definitely a strategic card, right? So you can set it up depending on the cards that you have currently, and you can play it to your strength, and you can more or less use it to neuter your opponent by, say, 50%, right? If you just play the odds that they're going to have a mix of non-attack and attack action cards, or in certain matchups, so for instance, get Dorinthia, it's going to shut out a lot of their reactions because, again, they want to swing their weapon. So it does, again, have versatility and a decent amount of play, and to some degree, you can sort of count on players choosing specific outcomes of this card, and depending on the outcome, right, if they deviate, if Dorinthia picks Peace, then with a little bit of game knowledge, you could probably understand what types of cards they're running, right? If they're not going to utilize their weapon, you can use it to read that, something's a little bit off. Poison the Well. The next time a hero would gain life, this turn instead they lose that much life. Overall, to me, life gain isn't a huge thing yet in Flesh and Blood, so this does seem like a future prospect, more so than anything. And now there are no rare generics aside from the armor, which again is so interesting to me because this is a supplemental set, but the majority of rares and commons are being funneled into the 4 staple heroes. Right, so then the other thing we'll just touch on is the other class cards, and we'll leave Shadow for next time. So again, more tokens, supplemental set. It's not draftable. I don't see the necessity, right? This level of pack filler, if again there were those special variants, you could do so much better, right? Even just being able to pull some of these other cards more often, is a little bit better. Okay, specializations we've touched on a lot before. The Briar one seems good. In fact, all of them seem good, right? It's a bit interesting that obviously we get an Old-Him specialization, Old-Him no longer being playable, and weirdly, overall, is, this whole section of cards. It's very odd. It seems like a random collection where they probably had a lot more cards for each hero, and then they've just made cuts for some reason. At least that's the view I'm taking. Okay, Rugged Roller. Once per turn, pay 1 attack. Activate Rugged Roller only if you've rolled a 6 on a die this turn. Super strong. Obviously, 1 for 6 is good, but it has that very heavy cost. Now, Dice Reiner was a thing, I believe. I don't know if it's still that much of a thing. I do think we need more support for dice rolls all around. I think Savage Lands is meant to be the next set, so, expanding upon Normal Brute more is probably on the table. Plus then the cards from Everfest. Good work. Scowling Fleshbag, the legendary. When this defends, Intimidate. Great way to shut down your opponent's turn, right? So you block for 2, and then you also make them potentially banish a card that, was part of their play chain for that turn. So it seems very strong to me in terms of a head piece. Numbskull, when this is in any zone, its cost to play, damage, and defense can't be modified, right? It can't lose any attack, can't lose any defense, and it can't be made more expensive. Overall, it is a very strong card because, again, it can't be altered. Dig Up Dinner. Choose 3 random cards in your graveyard, shuffle all attack action cards with 6 or more damage chosen this way into your deck. Then gain that much life. Definitely plays onto the strength of Brutes, gives Brutes some recovery, and recovery by and large, is a really decent thing to have because there aren't many cards that really regain life. So the fact that you then couple that with cycling back cards seems really good to me. Starstruck, another specialization, gone over it before, seems really good. Decimator Great Axe. Pay 3, attack. The first time this is defended by a non-equipment card each turn, halve the base defense of target defending card, rounded up. If this was rounded down, fantastic card. To me, yes, there are some axe buffing cards, but I only foresee it as being somewhat niche, right? I don't think this is enough to reshape Warrior, reshape Bolton, who, both Dorinthia and Warrior have a lot of strong cards that play around their signature weapons more so than this axe. Maybe Axe Emperor could be a thing. We'll have to see. Bastion of Unity. When this defends together with a card from hand, this gets +1 until the end, and then Temper. Not a substantial card to me, to be honest. So if you compare it to the other shields in the game, and I know Warrior doesn't have any shields, I believe, right? We've got a Guardian, yeah. So this is the first Warrior shield, but it's a Majestic, yet it has the same power level as some of the weaker shields. And then it also has that constraint of having to defend with another card. So it's a little bit of a bonus to have on Dorinthia, I guess, if you're running a one-handed weapon. Or in Bolton, is the new sword, I'm pretty sure the new sword is two-handed as well. The new sword does seem good. Weapons and shields or offhand is a interesting area to me, because by and large they seem more balanced than general equipment in terms of across the rarities from Majestic all the way to Common. They're a lot more playable across the field rather than having all the, say, Majestic cards be the most playable. Iron Song Venus. Once per turn action. Your next sword attack this turn gets, when this hits, a hero create a courage token. Go again. Right, seems great. Right, more emphasis on Dorinthia, still using swords, plus then Bolton and his new sword. All together, that's why it seems so weird to me to add the Decimated Great Axe, right? Imagine if this was a two-handed sword. That would see some play. Courage, right, when you play an attack, action a card, or activate a weapon, destroy this and it gains +1. Right, so it's a little bit extra damage, some bang for your buck. Have I gone too far? I've gone too far. And of course, you can continue to reuse it. So essentially, it just plays into a lot of the general hand slots, but you could build up courage tokens, right? Use this and some other generators and then go for a big hit. Chorus of the Iron Song, another specialization, pretty sure we've talked about before. Till the end of turn, target Dawnblade. Again, the incentive to use the Great Axe. Dawnblade in itself is two-handed as well, isn't it? Essentially, it has double its effect. So either use it as attack reaction, gain the +1, or you use it to defend with Unity to gain a courage token, which then gets you that +1 as well. Okay, Moloch Hill. The next time you would be dealt lethal damage this turn, you may banish Minerva Thermus from your hand or arsenal to prevent that damage. So this is a blitz card, right? Interestingly, it sort of reworks the way you want to play Minerva. So Minerva, you play her into your arsenal, right? And then you have 3 rounds for her to generate lessons and run her effect. But essentially, you could keep her as a safety net so that in those 3 rounds, if you're going to take lethal damage, you can use Moloch Hill. Overall, seems awfully niche to me, but with a super powerful effect. Scepter of Pain, once per turn, deal 1 arcane damage to an opposing hero. Trade a rune chant token for each damage dealt this way. Pretty decent. 1 arcane damage is quite nice, and then the fact that it's now a one-handed weapon, you can combo it with some of the good offhands. I think having versatility in terms of what you can actually use and different weapon combinations is a great thing to see. So having this and then Vizet's new flail is good. You know, gives Vizari a option to run a one-handed setup with a, somewhat powerful offhand to make up for losing out on some of the better two-handed weapons. Dryadic Carapace. Right, so this is essentially one half of Bloodsheath Skelter with a little bit stronger defense capabilities. And then you have the new Vizari card, no, Runeblade card, in Bequest the Vast Beyond. No, it is Vizari, I was right. Vizari, to essentially make up for the active effect on the Bloodsheath Skelter. Runic Reckoning. This costs 1 less to play for each rune chant token you control. Next Runeblade action you card you play, this turn gains +3. Seems strong. You need 1 rune chant token to make it a free play. Decent. Luring Inducement. My biggest disappointment of the set, because I was hoping for some more Cheyenne or Shapeshifter support. This isn't bad, it's great. It's definitely a auto-include if you run Cheyenne, but altogether I don't think it's enough for her to really enter meta play. Okay, Reality Refractor. Illusionist auras you control are weapons with a base power of 5, and once per turn pay 2 to attack, right? So you can now use your Spectral Shields as weapons again. Diadem of the Dream States, once per turn. When this or a non-token permanent you control with Ward is destroyed, you may pay 1 if you do create a Ponder token. Then has Ward 2. If your hero would be dealt damage, destroy this to prevent 2 of that damage. Now I'm curious about Ward, because I've seen some mixed things. If you have multiple cards with Ward on the field, right, do they all pop at once? Because if they all pop at once, then this isn't so great. Because it works counter to your current Archangels, because they all have Ward. If it's 1 and you get to pick 1, then that's great, because you can stop your Archangels being destroyed. Flicker Trick, Mirage, strong defense card, but obviously you can only play it against cards with 6 or more. So generally speaking, anytime you will play it, it will perfectly block. Lost in Thought, look at the target's hero hand and choose an attack action card. If you do, they put that card on the bottom of the deck and they create a Ponder token. Great amount of disruption. Right, so 2 great cards. Again, by and large, a lot of the Majestics that they've added, to me at least, seem really playable. Seem like great inclusions for any of the new decks and give a lot of value to Dusk Till Dawn. The issue that I still have is everything else is below the standard that I would like to see, especially in a non-draftable set. Again, the frontline helm, armor, plating, whatever you want to call it, give me the rationale to run this over anything else. Especially just the Iron Rot, which has the flexibility to use whenever you want, rather than in your first 2 turns. Or the Iron Helm, which has the same defense, was one-off use, but again, you can use it whenever you want, just with the cost of 1 resource. Anyway, that will be all for the generic section, and then we'll talk about the Shadow cards, which, a bit more interesting things to discuss, and then a bit more niche. At least these ones are common, unlike the frontline gear. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.